The Committee of the Whole is back to order. At this time, I'll recognize Senator San Agustin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to rise from the Committee of the Whole with a recommendation that Bill number 121-36 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Appropriation, Housing, and substitute on the floor be referred back to committee.
There's a motion on the floor. Are there any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections, motion carries. We stand in recess.
Emina 36, na Legislature in Guahan is back in session. Back from recess, Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to report back to the body after deliberation of Bill 121 COR as amended by the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing submitted on the floor that the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole is to place Substitute Bill 121-36 COR be referred back to committee.
On the motion to accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole to refer Bill 121 back to the committee, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Colleagues, we have exhausted our second reading file, and we have exhausted our third reading and voting file. We are now on brief extension of remarks. Is there anyone who'd like to be recognized? Senator Taichgui, you are recognized.
Sujus Masing, Madam Speaker, and Hafade, and thank you for the opportunity for brief remarks and extensions. I wish to thank you and our colleagues for the deliberations, especially on Bill 108 and 109 regarding adoption-related policies. Madam Speaker, despite words of caution from one of Guam's public health agencies' deputy directors on moving forward with both bills without additional work, a majority of senators decided to approve Bill 108 and 109, which would permit quick placement of a newborn or young child into a private adoption agency, whose only requirement to obtain an adoption agency business license is simply picking up a license and rev and tax. No background checks, no standards or guidelines. The legislature's decision to not err on the side of caution, notwithstanding the advice of a public health official as well as the acting head of the Child Protective Services, represent a potentially dangerous policy. As a local media organization summarized, puts the cart before the carabao. The same media organization recommended that Bill 108 and Bill 109 be set aside for now so that lawmakers can focus first on crafting sensible and strong licensing regulations for adoption agencies that operate or want to operate, and to ultimately help prevent potential exploitation and fraud of our children. Madam Speaker, according to the public health official who has dedicated more than 20 years of his life to Guam's children and families as a social worker and human service administrator, and who is also a foster parent himself, the correct practice of placing infants and children into foster homes prior to their adoptive home allows time needed to identify a committed adoptive family willing to take a child with special health care needs or one that tests positive for substance exposure at birth. He further stated that his agency had a history of these cases, and the outcomes have been favorable in that foster parents not seeking the perfect healthy child would be willing to provide unconditional love, adopts the child. Madam Speaker, I, along with some of my colleagues, including myself, attempted to address through amendments some of the major issues that have been raised on these bills. However, a majority in this legislature refused to work with us in order broader efforts are made to close a potential loopholes in these bills. Although I support the timely placement of our most vulnerable children into safe and loving homes, it is not clear if Bill 108 or Bill 109 will facilitate this objective, and therefore I could not in good conscience support both bills at this time. Madam Speaker, I believe that both bills as written aim to expedite and potentially commercialize what is understandably a sensitive and time-consuming adoption process. In closing, I wish to highlight the Deputy Director of Public Health's comment urging further discussions on Bill 108 and 109. Quote, I am reminded of the 10th anniversary of the 2 young girls from Saipan that went missing and to date have never been found. I'm also reminded of the baby selling scheme that took place in the Marshall Islands, targeting the poor and vulnerable. I'm not saying that Bills 108-36 and 109-36 will lead to tragedy and hardship. However, I'm expressing the need to move forward cautiously and to question in depth the long-term impact these bills will have on Guam's adoption process, unquote. Madam Speaker, I wholeheartedly agree with the public health official, and I appreciate his insight on these measures, which literally affect the health and safety of our children. Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Sijus Masi, Senator. Senator Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Certainly, Senator Tello articulated very good points that I also share with her with regards to Bill 108 and 109, so I will not elaborate further. I certainly support her comments, and I'm sure we'll be revisiting this issue. I did want to relate to the public and to our colleagues. I attended the memorial mass last week for a member of our community some of you may know, who recently passed away, and he was laid to rest last week, and I wanted to, at least for our official record, recognize him and his efforts. For those of you that may have known Farmer Bernard Watson, he was one of the most impressive farmers I've ever seen on Guam, and when I had the opportunity a number of years ago to work at the University of Guam with conservation farming, I had the opportunity to meet with and work with Mr. Watson, because he also sat on the Northern Soil and Water District Board. You know, when we talk about the challenges meeting farmers on our island, I always looked at Bernard as an exceptional farmer in our community. If you've ever been to his farm in Jigo, you could be nothing but impressed. The size and magnitude of the work that he was able to do with his fellow laborers, you know, from standing in the banana tree gardens that he had, you know, those banana trees are goodness, they got to be like 12, 13, 14, 15 feet tall. And just to realize the amount of genuine sweat and work and effort that he and the members of his crew invested to do the work that they did at that farm, you could be nothing, as I mentioned, but impressed. From bananas to tomatoes to eggplants to all types of other fruits and vegetables, and the size of his farm. And of course, Madam Speaker, as you know, northern Guam is, you know, a lot of limestone. It's very hard up north, just the geology that is there. But Bernard was able to take that and turn that into one very impressive farm. You know, he stood very proud in his farm. You know, he's a very quiet, humble man. If he were to walk in here or walk into a meeting, much more quiet and much more reserved individual. But boy, when you saw him working out on his farm and showing and sharing and educating other members of our community, including young people that went up there to learn about the work that him and his team were doing, you had to recognize that, you had to acknowledge that, because he was able to do something that, you know, many people aspire to. We have many other good farmers in our community, but the size and magnitude of what he was able to do in northern Guam was very impressive. And I just thought that in this process, you know, sometimes we always recognize those in our community that we think are very visible and important. Well, I thought Farmer Bernard Watson was very important, and I thought his contribution to this community, we probably have eaten his bananas and other fruits and vegetables and didn't know that when you went to the supermarket, you know, that came from his farm. And so I just wanted to recognize him. I think he's worthy of it, especially those in our community that simply go out and do the work that they do and extremely humble. They're not asking for attention. They just simply do what they do because it's something that's immensely important to them. And Bernard's background, he used to work for Gorco. I think he was a hydrogeologist, you know, worked in hydrogeology. You know, academically, that's very impressive, the work and the education and experience that he had. And then to leave that behind and go and build the farm that he did. What a tremendous loss to our community. But he leaves so much behind in his legacy of who he was and what he did, not just with his hands, his heart, but his caring and love for what he did. I think that's very impressive. That's very impressive, especially from someone that never asked for any attention or recognition, but simply go about doing what they do and what they love to do. So, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to add that to the record so that we can recognize Farmer Bernard Watson, and to his family, our condolences on his passing. I think he's one of those individuals in our community, while quiet as he was and did all the hard work that he did, never asking for recognition, he's most deserving of it. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to provide comment on his passing and the work that he did for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Is there anyone else who would like to be recognized on brief extension of remarks? Senator Blas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, please excuse that. Madam Speaker, over the last couple weeks, our body, our members here have deliberated many issues and talked about many concerns that plague our island today. And we did it in the midst of also remembering 77 years ago when our people were in the midst of a struggle, coming out of a struggle that was not of our making, not of our own, but yet we had to endure. And I'm talking about the occupation of our island during World War II. June 28th was War Survivors Remembrance Day, a day that was memorialized in this body many years ago so that we can remember them. But the whole month of July, as this is evidence, and thank you, Madam Speaker, for representing our body in this morning's event at Halagwek. There are other memorials, there will be other ceremonies throughout this month of July that will remind us of the struggles that our people had taken. And I think it would be remiss to say that every member of this body recognizes that those struggles existed. And that for many of us, taking the time when we could and when we can, and in sacrifice for others like you did for us this morning, to attend, to ensure that the people of Guam know that while we continue to work on the problems that we have today, we remember the struggles that they had 77 years ago. So I think I would be remiss in this brief extension of remarks to inform our manamko, to say to our manamko, for having the courage, the strength, the endurance for what you have had to. We haven't forgotten that. Because we were here doing the work, it doesn't mean that we haven't forgotten. And I just wanted to make sure that that's expressed in behalf of the body. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Blas. Is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized on brief extension of remarks? If not, Majority Leader Senator Nelson, you are recognized.
Sitas Masi, Madam Speaker, I move that we adjourn today's session subject to the call of the Speaker.
On the motion to adjourn, subject to the call of the Speaker, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, we are hereby adjourned subject to the call of the Speaker. Sitas Masi.